Hello. In this video, I'll be going over the mission statement as well as the execution paragraph. Usually the mission statement consists of this general format. Blank squad conducts blank along blank, no later than blank, in order to blank. And I usually add along for a little bit of flair to my operations orders. I usually add along the distance and direction and make it very clear to them where to go in order to complete the mission in case myself, the pace man or compass man, is for whatever reason disabled. So an example, to make it very clear, is that first squad, our squad, conducts movement to contact along a 200-degree azimuth for 500 meters, no later than 0800, in order to clear the enemy from the AO. Okay? So with that mission statement, I stated what squad I was in, of what unit I belong in, what battle drill we'll be doing, and make it very intentional what battle drill you'll be using, because you're going to realize by the time that you're in sticks, some people are going to be very tired, some people aren't going to be paying very attention. You want your mission statement, if they take nothing else from your operations order, you want them to at least copy down or understand your mission statement. Okay? Be very frank. I'm going to do a point ambush over here, or I'm going to do a recon. Make it very clear what you're going to be doing. Along your distance and direction so that everybody knows where to go, no later than the end time, whenever you expect to be finished with your mission, in order to complete a higher unit mission. Remember that everything in the Army plays into a bigger picture. The squad is going to affect the platoon, the platoons are going to affect the companies, and this is going to be the overall effect that it has on the area. It's going to be telling you why you're doing what you're doing in order to statement. And of course, at the very end you say, I say again, and then repeat the mission statement. But I was hoping that'd be a given. Okay, the first subparagraph of the execution portion of the operations order is called the concept of the operations. To me, I kind of view this as a sort of chapter of contents. Table of contents, sorry, that was my mistake. I view this as a sort of table of contents to the overall operations order. You're going to be writing, this operation has been broken down into blank phases. Phase 1, for example, can be receipt of the mission, PCIs, stepping off the objective. Phase 2 will be movement from the Alpha to the ORP. Phase 3 will be leaving the ORP to attack the objective. All of the phases, you can do whatever you want with them. And in fact, some people don't even use this format. Remember that this is my format that I'm giving you guys. And in the concept of operations, surprisingly, you don't go into detail what each phase is going to be. It's just phase 1, receipt of mission, PCI, stepping off. No more detail than that. All of the detail for the concept of operations goes into another subparagraph. They all go into a paragraph called the scheme of maneuver. Now this is where everything goes into detail as much detail as you need. Remember, you're trying to get this operations order done as fast as possible with as much pertinent information as possible. Meanwhile, giving off the feeling that you really know what you're talking about. Remember that if the TAC is grading on your op board for a good portion of your overall evaluation, you're going to want to show them that you have a lot of domain knowledge. You're going to want to show them that you can manage your time well and give enough time for subordinate leadership to go ahead and pass this down as well, so we can do rehearsals and whatever else that needs to be done. So don't try to just throw in as much information as you possibly can if it has nothing to do with your operations order. Make everything you say very deliberate and very and have a reason behind whatever you're saying. Okay, so scheme maneuver. This is going to outline how each phase starts and ends. Phase 1 begins with the receipt of the mission from the platoon leader or your TAC, and ends when we call up to the PL to request to cross the LD. Okay? Phase 2 will begin with us moving out in a squad column fire team wedge, and just be that specific. Know what movement technique you're going to be using when you step off. Know that you want to set up a rally point every 50 meters. Know that you want to set your ORP at 150 meters. All of this should be in very good detail. Okay? And the scheme maneuver goes on all the way down until you go on your actions on your objective and you're explaining EPW team moving in and another team moving in. I'll be showing you another video of me moving around the pieces on a terrain model kit so you guys can see how this is briefed. In short though, when I'm describing what this is, I guess, is that you just describe when the phase starts, when the phase ends, everything important that happens in between. And those are the two biggest sub-paragraphs inside the execution portion. Beyond that, right afterwards, are fires. Also, I'd like to remind you guys that when you guys are giving your operations order, you're not reading it off of a piece of paper or your notebook. This will all be briefed on the terrain model that you set up yourself. So you can't be reading any of this unless you're reading off your grid coordinates or something very specific from your terrain model. Anyways, to go on, after the scheme of maneuver will be fires. And this is how I set it up in my op-board skeleton. We do/don't have priority of blank fires. Okay? If you do have priority of fires, you just circle we do have priorities. If you say we don't, just circle don't and ignore everything else. But say that we do. We do have priority of blank fire. And this is where I would be a lot more specific as to what kind of fires do we have. Do we have access to mortar rounds? Do we have smoke rounds, incendiary rounds? Whatever that was given to you and was briefed by your TAC, that's the kind of round that you want to put in there. And what else I like to do to add a little bit of flair to my operation order is to actually try to use the priority of fire. And I feel like that's something that's not always done in ROTC. Set a PPT. A PPT is a pre-planned target. Now, the reason that this is extra flair, I guess, is because it takes a lot of extra work. A lot of the things I'm telling you guys to do here isn't required, but the extra work, if you guys get it done fast enough, shows that not only do you have time management, but it also shows that you have domain knowledge. A pre-planned target is, when you set a pre-planned target, you're pointing to mortars or howitzers or whatever you have at a certain grid coordinate already. I'll be showing you in the tactics video usually where you would want to set a pre-planned target. But just know that a pre-planned target is set at a certain grid coordinate, and you can have more than one. Sometimes they'll brief you and tell you have 3. Sometimes you can add as many as you want. It's usually a little bit tact dependent. But for an example, I'll just go ahead and give you an example. Fires. We do have priority of fires for smoke grenades set at pre-planned target Echo Tango 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and that, or 60 Mike Morton, whatever you want to put down. Task subordinate units. Now, it's a little bit confusing when first getting started, understanding the difference between task to subordinate units and coordinating instructions. Now, my advice is to think of it like this. A coordinating instruction, you're trying to coordinate your whole squad or unit to work as one. Everybody needs to know this information in order to act as a single force on the objective. The task of subordinate units is that you can kind of imagine breaking down your squad into a bunch of different units or a bunch of different special teams. For example, this is what I'm going to have on my skeleton. Assault is going to be blank team. Support is blank team, either Alpha or Bravo. Aid and litter, I'll have an underline there and write down by name. And remember, when you're briefing this, you want to brief it by name so that they understand who they are, who's going to be on the aid and litter, who's going to be on the EPW, who's going with me on the recon team, who's going to be on the demo team if needed, and who's going to be on the civilian on battlefield team if needed. And if you guys are confused about the civilian on battlefield versus the EPW, a civilian on battlefield team is kind of like an EPW team, but more gentle. And I guess less terrifying than, okay. For example, an EPW team, you would point a gun at them, you'd tell them to get down, you'd zip tie them, you'd shove their face in the ground while you frisk them and to make sure you don't have any weapons. A COB team, you'd go out ahead of your element, ahead of your squad, try to talk to the civilian, see why they're there, make an assessment of whether or not they're armed or dangerous, or whether or not they support U.S. forces or the SAPA. That's the kind of stuff that the COB team is going to be doing versus the EPW team. So task of subordinate units, you're trying, in this subparagraph, you're making sure everybody that you've assigned a special job in your mission knows who they are and what they're doing. Oh, you guys can't see it. Okay. Coordinating instructions. And also another very important paragraph to be briefing out to your squad. Okay? Fire control measures. This is a very, very important subparagraph. And this is because when you're using a weapon, when you're using, let's say, an M16 or a squad automatic weapon, M249 or M240 Bravo, these bullets go really far. And they can continue to kill people if they're in the area, up to half a mile or even over a mile away. And this also has to be taken in consideration, especially to your left and right unit missions. You don't want second and third squad to be on your right or left when you do a flanking maneuver and start shooting over towards a different squad. You have to be aware of where your right and left unit missions are, or if there are any friendlies or civilians in the area. You don't want to be shooting in the direction of a town. You don't want to be shooting in the direction of schools or anywhere except where you want, to kill the enemy. Okay? So you break down fire control measures into 3 smaller sections. I would like to say, is signal. How are you going to initiate fire? How are you going to tell them to shift fire, or lift fire, or cease fire? Are you going to use whistle blasts, hand signals, yell it out? It's up to your own discretion. The left and right hand limit, and this is what I was talking about earlier, of understanding where you don't want to shoot bullets out into, presumably a mile or so. And this would require analysis from your situation paragraph. What should be, you as a planner, the most important paragraph? So let's say that there's a second squad over on your left-hand side. You might want to brief that you're going to flank left and shoot towards the right, no matter what the conditions are on the battlefield, because you want to not expose second squad to friendly fire. And that's just another suggestion. A rate of fire. The rate of fire can be described in a lot of different ways. I prefer to use, doctrinal terminology. A sustained rate of fire you can imagine as, for an M16, going through 1 magazine every minute. So since there are 30 rounds in a magazine and 60 seconds in a minute, about 1 shot every 2 seconds. You can do it at a rapid rate of fire, which you can imagine for an M16 to just be pulling off, a couple seconds of burst once in a while. And then there's cyclic rate of fire, which no one's ever going to use except maybe for an ambush. And that's just pretty much full auto for every single weapon that you can use. I mean, a cyclic rate of fire on a 240 Bravo, you have to change out the barrel every single minute. And that's just ridiculous. So fire control measures, very important to be able to control your element, especially during actions on the objective. Make sure that they know how they understand you, and remember that you can back brief people on this as well after. The second part of coordinating instructions that's important, timeline. When are you guys leaving? When are you guys supposed to complete the mission by? Sometimes you have to report at what point you're going to have your ORP set by. PRRs, very, very important. Priority Intelligence Requirements. This is almost, in my opinion, a secondary mission statement. While you're, say, destroying an enemy cache site, depending on what your commander wants you to find, they want you to know, or they also want you to keep an eye out for maps or enemy operations order, or maybe they have, nuclear or biological capabilities. When you see something that's on a PIR, you're going to call up to hire immediately. And number 4, reports. Now, most importantly, the team leaders as well as yourself need to be tracking on what the commander believes would be an important report. And this would also be in my outline, what types of support you can, or what type of reports you can circle. For example, salute report was giving a sit rep every, 200 meters or so, tell them, oh, hey, we're close to the objective now, oh, we're setting up the ORP. Something like that is actually very useful, and And that's also one of the most common improves in lanes, is communicating with whoever your PL is or whoever your TAC is in the lane. So when you're writing down reports, be sure that you get every single one, and this is part of your mission as a squad leader, to be able to send all of this up to higher. Oh, and I guess that's it. After coordinating instructions, we are done with the execution paragraph. The next video will be on sustainment and command and signal.